Silica safety is not my absolute forte, so that's why the two girls are here to explain their expertise. So what I'll do is introduce Rebecca first. I'm just going to jump over here and bring up her website. But Rebecca has a company called Fit Test Australia. Now, when I seen this first, I thought we were talking about fit being the other fit, because I didn't even understand what fit testing was for, obviously I've been in residential construction most of my life, so it was something pretty new to me. But now I've met Rebecca, I've never met anyone more enthusiastic and passionate about the industry that they're in. Rebecca started out as a fit test consultant. She was given some instructions and some masks and a machine and told to go out and start fit testing. And I think it just sparked in Rebecca's mind to be like, well, I want to do this properly, because the respiratory systems of people are so important, and I think we take them for granted a little bit. So Rebecca is the director. They are now almost national. I think you've got branches in 4 or 5 states now, so you are looking to spread around Australia. Beck, did you want to give us a little bit of info, just a couple of minute intro on yourself so that everyone can get to know you?
Thank you, Luke. Basically, Luke covered that nicely for me there. So really passionate about people's respiratory health in the workplace, because I think it's an invisible hazard is really hard for all of us to actually conceptualize and care about. It's kind of like, oh, it won't happen to me. And the quality of fit testers that were around at the time, just there weren't as many, and the ones that were doing it probably didn't have a lot of care to it as well. So just wanted to attach pride to the service and actually give back to workers and to businesses to go, well, what should we be doing in this space, and how do we make sure we look after ourselves, look after the workers, and help people go home safely.
Very good, awesome. Something that Rebecca told me which really kind of raised my eyebrows and thought, does this stuff actually go on? Beck, something you told me a while ago is that in the fit testing arena, obviously some building sites or some jobs, you need to have the fit testing done and documented to get onto sites. And you told me that there's actually some of that actually goes on that's fraudulent. There's people that will actually manufacture documents. We don't need to mention any names or anything, but
it's rife actually, yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about that. What's actually happening there?
I think because people kind of almost don't grasp the importance of it, or it's a bit too difficult once they start to look at what is fit testing, what is respirators in the workplace, how do we manage it, how do we implement it. A lot of people may just see it as a box ticking situation, and they will just go, well, we just need the document to be compliant, not understanding that if they are required to wear respirators in the workplaces, obviously airborne contamination, recognise that those devices are there to bring workers below exposure and to keep them safe and help them from incurring any occupational illness due to whatever airborne hazards there. So I think that, yeah, a lot of people do fail to understand that as a holistic thing. Like sometimes we go out and we will fit test respirators and people still go buy anything off the shelf, not realising it's specific to the respirator they were tested to. So there's a lot of learning I feel that needs to still be had in the space, and obviously it's growing and it's getting attention, but sometimes it's keeping people muddled versus a bit more clarity. So well, that's what we're here to do.
That's exactly what we're here to do today, is give some clarity. Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Beck. So I'll switch over to Kathy now, just to do an intro for Kathy. I'll jump on her website. Let me grab you. So Kathy's out in Newcastle. We met probably only a year ago, but just instantly connected with Kathy. Strikes me as someone that's just no bullshit, which in the WHS industry, it's very easy to get consumed with so many words and terms and things that just don't make sense in reality. So when I met Kathy, it was just, I felt like we'd met someone that was very realistic about her approach to WHS, but was also very straight down the line. So we started talking about, well, how can we do more together? And then we found out that Kathy actually does Silica training. Something that just absolutely impresses me about Kathy is she's done over 500 accident investigations. So she's seen the nastiest of the nastiest happen on building sites. But going through that, I mean, over 500 investigations, we know that Kathy's got the absolute skills in the room to help your staff stay safe as well. Kathy, would you like to give us a couple of minutes on your intro and I guess why you're in this industry.
Thank you. That's an amazing intro. And Luke is absolutely right. Where I've learnt the most about workplace health and safety is around incidents occur and things go wrong. Why? Because we can't deny that that's what led to it. So that's where I think I've learnt the most. But I have come off the shop floor, literally. I worked in the cement industry for 17 years. I worked in the lime industry prior to my safety career. So I'd hate to think how much silica I breathed in over the years as well, because I hated PPE and I understand why people don't like PPE. To be honest, it used to be easier to get it out of your nose than it was to wear the PPE. We just didn't like it. But I wish I knew now. Then what I know now, I am concerned about what health it's done for me. So that's where I've come from. I've come off the floor, got into safety after a 23-year-old was crushed on a forklift, and I have a real passion for it. Why? Because I'm really passionate about people. But Luke is right. I'm very much about being that common sense approach. I'm not about putting in things that we don't need, as far as I have a few philosophies or 6 philosophies that I've created over the years, and I don't believe that compliance means more red tape. I believe that we can do it without the red tape, but there is some things that we just need to do properly. There's a high risk to them, and silica is absolutely one of them. And, I still believe we haven't seen the full impact of it, but we're certainly starting to understand this is a disease, and this has impacts where, it's not just a certain age, it's actually every age of worker. We're seeing, workers that are in their 20s that have passed away. We're seeing people who worked in offices near somewhere that had silica dust issues, a lady that cleaned her desk up for a number of years and wiped it off her desk, and it's actually impacted her. So there's no real rhyme or reason to who it impacts. So it's something that we need to really deal with. And it's great to come together today to talk about it and remove, I work with small to medium businesses because it is very difficult for small to medium businesses to get the right information and not be told a heap of stuff that they don't need. And that's why I'm so passionate about Multiply Me, because I think it's fantastic. And Luke has my 100% backing, and I'm enjoying working with his team. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Kathy. Cool. Actually, I might open up another question just there, Kathy. You're an external consultant. You don't work at Multiply Me, but we've got you now reviewing swims and doing like a senior compliance check on everything that we make now. Why are you so attracted to what we're doing?
Look, why I'm so attracted to it is my business is Key Consultation Solutions, and I called it that because I believe consultation and good, effective consultation is the key to anything, safety, productivity, morale, all that sort of stuff. So the messages that people are getting through Multiply Me in the videos and even the way the swims are being done, I am absolutely passionate about it. They're short, sharp, they're to the point, they're hitting the points on what the worker needs to know. We're not asking them to sit there and listen to 25 minutes of someone lecturing them about something. They get to the point, whether it be Toolbox Tom, whether it be Avatar Kathy, whoever it is, or I just think it's so interesting, it's engaging, it's getting to the point, and it's really giving workers those key messages that they need to do. And I can just see so many applications for Multiply Me. That's why I'm passionate about it. I'm not into the fluff. I'm not into the saying something for the sake of saying it. And that's what Multiply Me does. It really just drives down those important, short, sharp, succinct messages that workers need to hear. It's in easy understand language, and, it drives your compliance. So
wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. All right, let's jump on with the Silica webinar part of this. So we're going to talk about why silica matters now. Obviously, we all know about it, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. But I jumped on Google before and thought, let's just do a little bit of checking around here to start with. And the first thing I just wanted to know, why do employers need to consider silica in the workplace now? It's been around for a while, but we're all sitting in this room because there's a lot of hype around it at the moment. Now, that might be a little bit hard to read there, but there was just one fact here that we have an estimated 600,000 workers exposed to silica dust, and we're now seeing hundreds, if not thousands, develop those cases. So we're right at the start of the wave, I believe. That's kind of where there's all this hype's coming from, because the problem's already there. We're trying to prevent that it's going to happen to people who haven't been exposed. The ones that have been exposed, once you've been exposed or you've got the disease from it, you can't stop it. It's incurable. So really what I believe the government or our regulators are trying to do now is manage how long this is going to go for, because there's going to be a huge rise and then hopefully a decline if we start to manage it properly. Now, I quickly then Googled, I got 4 things to show you here. Then I Googled, well, what happens if I expose my workers to silica and I don't do anything about it? Essentially, a building company or trade company, they know that they're cutting concrete or doing something around silica, and we'll get to where silica is as well, because I think that's one of the things that we need to understand, like where is it and who's at risk. But essentially it's that the fines are huge, and because it's an incurable disease, it can turn into industrial manslaughter. So if you're doing something in the business, cutting concrete, drilling or grinding, or even worse, where you're working with engineered stone, we know that that's the higher risk one, and you do nothing about it over the next few years, and in 5 years or 6 years, I think it takes 5 years to incubate, is that right?
It can be quite soon.
Okay, so it can be even faster than that. So incubates and starts, if you don't have anything in place, the consequences are huge. And then I looked at, well, what are the fines? You know, we know that someone is going to be physically impacted, but what does that do to the business? And again, I just looked at here quickly. We've got on-the-spot fines at the moment. You know, regulators, investigators can walk in and give you an on-the-spot fine of up to $30,000. Stop work penalties and so on. So there's a lot of things that can happen immediately to you. Then I Googled this one because I hear this all the time. People are like, yep, we're buying masks for the guys, we're managing our silica risks. So I just Googled, can I just buy masks from Bunnings and tell my guys to wear them? Because I guess over the last 10 years, that's where a lot of us have been doing. We walk into Bunnings, we look at the cheap one, the expensive one, and we buy something. Now, that is not even close to what's going to keep you safe these days. I'll come back over here, Kathy. Can you walk us through what the new laws actually require?
Yeah, sure. So what the new laws require is that each PCBU or each person who conducts a business needs to identify all their known and suspected sources of silica dust. So there's a responsibility there to do the investigation and actually understand where it is. Do you have it on site? You can use safety data sheets or supplier information to look into products to confirm whether there is the presence of crystalline silica in the products that you do. And look, there is a lot of confusion around out there about it, but we need to be able to tap into the resources that we have to be able to do that. So an SDS will certainly show you that information. But like I said, suppliers are also another really good source as well. There's a responsibility to do a risk assessment. So we've got to determine how we process the crystalline silica. Is it classified as high risk? What we do, are we exposing people to a high risk when it comes to that? We also have a responsibility, exactly like Luke has said, not to rely solely on PPE. PPE is absolutely important, and 100% the fit testing and what Rebecca does is very, very key to this. But we can't just rely on that, and we can't just rely on training, because as we know, that's the lowest level of control. It is a very important part of the control, but it is the lowest level. And assumptions. So if we don't know otherwise whether we're high risk, then we need to assume that it is high risk. Because the testing, there is air monitoring and things that can be done to confirm it. It's very costly. We're talking about $5,000 a day to be able to do that testing. So, you know, if there is any doubt, then the safest way to treat it is that we treat it as high risk, which means that we go down the path of doing training with our workers, putting our workers in PPE and doing our risk assessments. So they're the key points that we need to be looking at.
Okay. So firstly, companies should be working out whether these risks are there, having some sort of register to say these are products we use, these are activities we do, this is where we know silica is, and then working out whether they do it frequently enough to make sure to see if it's high risk, which we're going to talk about that in a minute because it's very grey. So product identification, task identification, and then there's probably talk about the frequency. So I just talked about this a little bit with Beck before. I'm confused on how do we determine who's high risk and low risk? Before you start there, Kathy, what I'm understanding is that any trade or builder business that might be grinding concrete, drilling dynabolts, putting in fixings overhead into a slab, anything like that now, drilling into concrete is exposing silica. So if you were putting in dynabolts, putting down a frame as a builder, you're doing that, putting down a new frame, let's say every 3 weeks or something. Is that company now deemed high risk?
Yeah, look, that is the difficult, because it does come down to the time of exposure as well as the level.
I'm just going to summarize a little bit of what Kathy said. So we're talking about, how do we know whether we're a high risk or low risk with silica? What sort of procedures or products do we need to be using? The way I'm seeing it is that anyone who's drilling into concrete is a risk. Whether you're doing it every day or every 2 weeks, what I'm hearing from Kathy and also Beck, that it's just easier to assume that you're high risk unless you want to do the air monitoring. Now, this is what Kathy just said is too expensive. Now, what that means is, let's say, Grant, you're working on high-rise projects up in Maroochydore. If there's not air monitoring set up to say that the air here is classified low risk, what I'm understanding is that the guys should be using extraction tools. They should also be using PPE, and assuming that you're high risk because you haven't taken the steps to prove that you're low risk. Becky, is that what you're understanding?
It definitely is, and just to clear that up a little bit, air monitoring needs to be done in sample batches, and those sample batches are 6 to 10 times. So you don't just do one day and go, we're good. It has to be 6 to 10 samples taken, and then sometimes that's periodically as well. So it's not just a one-time event. Well, you might move around and do different tasks and different things, so then you would conduct more air monitoring. So it's not like a one and done situation. So that's where a lot of businesses, Kathy's assumption of the cost was quite cheap. I hear it going for about $10,000, but that's more for tier 1 projects. So if you're looking at that, it's $60,000 to $100,000 a pop. So that's why people go, well, the cost of PPE and just popping ourselves on the register is maybe a more cost-effective way to navigate it.
So again, a fork in the road for everyone is to go, well, air monitoring for me, if this was me, I would say, well, that's just not even an option. Trying to conduct that on all sites, every room, every day, it's basically unachievable. Grant, are you seeing air monitoring on the jobs that you're on?
No, we're not seeing air monitoring, but we're using dust extraction tools and PPE combined together with other methods using water, but and that is monitored by the on-site safety and part of our swims and part of our induction.
Yep, awesome.
But I don't know about the register.
Yeah, cool. So I would say, for the sake of this webinar, the air monitoring is not really going to be the choice for everyone. So let's just move that aside. So what Grant actually just said, that they are using wet tools, ventilation, and then using PPE. It's written into your swims. And that's really the line that we're going down. Now, Grant just mentioned that he doesn't know so much about the register. That's new to me as well. So we're going to work on to what this Silica register is, and then we'll kind of combine a little bit of this back in. So we've carried on there a little bit, discussed that air monitoring is probably not the choice for everyone. So it's going to be extraction tools, wet tools, ventilation, and PPE. They're going to be the choices of most people in the room.
Yeah.
Now, we'll talk about the register, and then I just want to talk about this one a little bit more. So what is this Silica register? Who should be on it? What do we need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a mainly New South Wales requirement, but any business, their workers are exposed to high-risk silica, need to register their workers on the Silica register. It's not an onerous process, but it's to go in so that Safe Work have the details of the businesses that are working on the register. There is a requirement that workers are on there. So you jump on it. It's a very simple process. You jump on it and put all your details in it. And when you do it, you don't have to put your risk assessments or anything on there. You just need to go in and register your workers.
Okay, so it's online somewhere?
Yeah, we can send out the link for that.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
We can put it in our newsletter?
Yep, 100% we can put that in the newsletter. Yep.
Okay, so again...
but that's a New South Wales requirement at this stage. Yeah.
But not to other states at the moment?
Not at the moment, no.
And is it going that way?
It doesn't say whether it is or not, but yeah.
So would you then encourage people from other states to do it anyway, or just wait until it becomes the state requirement?
No, just wait till it becomes a state requirement.
Okay, so anyone that's not in New South Wales, the Silica register is not at your doorstep at the moment. For others that are in New South Wales, You said if you're high risk, so we're crossing this grey area. How does the business know I'm high risk, so I need to be on this?
Okay, so again, like we said, if you are doing work with those products that are involved with, like that have silica in them, if you're cutting, grinding, all that sort of stuff, like you said, I didn't hear what you said about the air monitoring when you're off, but a lot of my businesses that I'm working with aren't going down the air monitoring path because like you said, $5,000 a day for testing. That's a lot of training, getting the PPE in place, making sure that everything's in place that they need to do. So if you have any doubt, you register.
Okay. Yeah. Now, tell me what happens if I'm a business owner. I'm thinking, well, if I register, they know where I am, that type of feeling. So is the register somewhere where you're laughing, Rebecca, but that's how it feels, right? I feel like you're saying, well, hey, Luke Canham Constructions, I'm over here. I've got all my guys working around silica. Does that bring the inspectors out to come and have a look, or what happens after that?
Not any more than they're going to normally, I don't believe. They probably are going to use it for their statistics and things like that. But again, you're not going to not put your workers on the silica register if you are exposing them. And if you are doing that, then you're acknowledging there is a chance of them being exposed if you don't do the testing. So you still got to put in place what you need to do. So I get how it feels like. You might be putting yourself out there with a red flag. It's just the process that needs to be done. And then if there's any doubt there and you aren't going to do the air monitoring, then you need to put all the other stuff in place. Do your respiratory testing, do your training, everything else that you need to do. Build it into your procedures to do wet cleanup, making sure you've got the right extraction, everything that gentleman spoke before. Sorry, what was his name?
Yep.
Grant? Yeah, everything Grant said before. Yeah, being proactive. Yeah,
I'm a commercial plumber, Kath, and we drill overhead, mainly our biggest issue.
Yeah, I get that. But again, it's doing that, what I spoke about in the first place, is doing that investigation into the products that you're using as well. Even on resi, we need to look at the products that people are using and what is the level of silica in those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I always just trying to figure this out for myself if I still had my building company. So regardless of the products, we're still bringing this back to concrete. So concrete's everywhere. Dynabolts, whatever, tiling, if we're cutting tiles. So all of this stuff is dust that creates silica. So when I spoke to you earlier, Kathy, I was really trying to work out, well, who does this affect? And I'm still doing this. I'm still peppering you with questions because I'm still trying to figure it out. But essentially, Kathy has just said that if you're not willing to prove that you're low risk, just put yourself on the register. She sees that as the best possible solution to go forward at the moment. It just makes sense. And it solves the gap of why weren't you on the register later on.
Absolutely, because you think about it, if you have to justify, so say down the track someone does come up with silicosis that was worked under you or worked for your business, then you need to have that evidence to show whether you did determine whether it was low risk or not. Again, the only way to do that is air monitoring. But if you are doing tasks with those products, then it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to prove that there wasn't some sort of exposure. And I'm not someone that goes to the worst case scenario, but in this particular case, it is a real difficult one. I'm not sure how Rebecca feels about this, but I did a lot of calls to air monitoring companies at the time. Look, they're prepared to come and do your testing for you, no problem at all, and charge you $5,000 a day. But I don't know many of my small to medium builders that can afford that for it then to trigger the high risk, and for then you go through all the rest of it. So a lot of my businesses, so I'm talking about landscapers, plumbers. I did the training for a small plumbing company the other day. Plasterers is another one as well. They are making the decision to go down the path of treating it as high risk without doing the air monitoring. So logging their workers and doing what they need to do.
So you're saying that's just a sensible decision to do in New South Wales. If it hits the other states, you would probably suggest the same thing.
Well, the only difference with the other states is they're recording it on the Silica register. This is still nationwide as far as the legislation goes around managing.
Okay, so just for Grant, he's in Queensland. You said before that he wouldn't need to register. Are you saying that he should do that because it's national, or wait till...
It's only the putting it on the register. As far as managing all the other controls, you still need to do all that.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about what can be done. So if you're in New South Wales, put your guys on the register. If you're doing any building plumbing, whatever, you're probably just going to be safer to do that. It's shown proactive steps. If anything happens in the future, you're on the register.
Yep.
So then let's talk about the next couple of steps after that. How do you manage this in the workplace? That's really where Beck has been brought in today, because she's actually helping commercial companies for a long time. Becca, just quickly, are you seeing that the residential space are starting to pick this up as well?
Definitely, especially sole traders, your 5 to 10 workforce, they really are, because even just to be compliant, then they may get better work subcontracting for tier 1 projects as well. So it's just making sure they've got their ducks in a row.
Yeah, okay.
And being compliant in these areas.
Wonderful. Hey, I just noticed a couple of questions. Let me just grab those. So Julie from ShedX down in South Australia said, is working outdoors low risk, e.g. building sheds? So they're drilling into concrete, dynabolts, mostly metal fabrication, but they're working outdoors. Is there a consideration for being outdoors, Kathy or Beck?
I'm not sure how Kathy wants to answer that one, but to my understanding, again, it comes down to just being able to prove that you're not. So you would maybe then do exposure monitoring, where the actual worker wears an actual air pump and they check their proximity of exposure versus an environment, and then if they come back clean, then you can say that you're not a high risk.
Okay, so that's news to me. So a worker can wear a particular apparatus that actually tests them during a couple of days while they're doing normal activities, is that right?
Their tasks.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually 6 to 10 samples is the normal to my understanding, and that is something I used to do in a previous role. We was ear monitoring on sites and for workers, and that's how I got into the fit testing space. Okay,
so let's say for Julie in ShedX, are they better to go and do that and say, well, we're never going to wear masks, or would it just be better to, because some jobs might have good airflow and the next job you're working inside a small section of the shed where the air's not getting away? So do you feel like...
That's the tough part. It's working, and that's where the risk assessment comes in. What are your tasks? What are your work environments? And that's where a lot of just PPE and the fit testing and Silica awareness training is more just people are doing it as a safety blanket to go, we can't monitor every worker in every environment. And sometimes they're not doing the task. They might be in an environment where someone else within that proximity might be, and they still could be exposed to the dust, but not due to their own personal work tasks.
Right, that's another layer of complexity. So out of all this, for me again, if I'm running the business, I'm just saying, if you're ever around any of these, I mean, if it's not you, someone else is grinding, company policy is to wear the masks.
And that's why tier 1s now just would have it as part of an induction process now, which people do find a bit baffling. They're like, we don't even wear a mask, but it's like you may be doing your task alongside someone else who is generating all that dust and working with just crystalline silica material and generating that dust from there. Yeah.
Okay. So best approach, let's talk about masks. So we won't go into the dust extraction tools. That's not what we're here to talk about, but there's obviously extraction tools that you can put on your machines. Wet suppression, there's a lot of tools out there now that have wet or water drippers or water suppression at the source, so it doesn't actually become airborne, which is fantastic. But I really want to just concentrate on Beck's service with the fit testing, because that was very new to me only sort of 12 months ago. So we'll talk about your service, Beck. So we're talking again, just a residential building company, 10 staff. They could take steps of contacting you. So Beck and I put together something we call our AirGuard respiratory system. And it's essentially working between Beck's service and using some video content on Multiply Me, and then setting it up in a way that you can make your masks available to the team, but also be very well documented to say this is how we roll. So the first thing would be, if you are looking to go down this line, Beck does fit testing. So do you want to tell us in about a minute, Beck, what does that look like? They get you in. What does fit testing actually do? What do they get?
Whenever you engage anyone that fit tests, their purpose is to go out and check what respiratory protection you are providing your workers with at that time. And if you're not actually providing them with something, they can provide recommendations based on their data. Hopefully it's their data that drive those choices that they put forward. And then the testing would be conducted on the workers to go, is it fit for purpose for each individual worker, so that you know when they do need respiratory protection, they've been trained on it. So we cover the quick training of donning, doffing, that's putting it on, taking it off, filter changes if they're reusable, fit checking, which is a requirement that a worker must know how to fit check their respirator, which is a positive or negative pressure check for themselves. And that's pretty much it. So at the end of that, you just get those certificates to say the worker is fit for purpose with that respirator and they've been trained, and then that's what's safe work. If you are falling into that high risk because you're not proving otherwise, when they are wearing RPE, everything's great in that space there.
Ask a question on that, Beck?
Please.
You come up with a system for guys with hairy faces, because I've got lots of them.
There are devices they can use, but they're coming down in price. They used to retail about $3,000 back in the day. They're now about $1,500, and I do believe at some point this year there are manufacturers bringing out even cheaper versions that could hit around the $800 or $900 recommended retail. And that's just where they get the clean air, and it's just usually built into a certified hard hat that pushes positive airflow into their breathing zone, and that avoids fit testing when it's loose fitting.
But not in a disposable format. We're using a P2 mask now.
Yeah, P2 or any reusable that falls under tight fitting, they need to be clean shaven where the mask touches the skin. And that is, I'm going to say, the bane of my existence, trying to have those conversations with the PCBU, but also the workers.
Yeah. So just to elaborate on that, this was news to me as well. When Beck goes into, this is good to discuss, it's kind of one of those things that no one's really going to agree with, but it is what the regulators are asking for at the moment, that if you're wearing a mask, you have to be clean shaven. So it essentially means anyone with a beard, their seal on their mask is causing the mask to be ineffective. Now,
that's it.
And you said that's cool. That's the thorn in your side. So you're constantly having to battle that with staff and companies to say, well, it's not you with the rules. This is how it is.
And that's it. Safe work, I was talking to them a couple of weeks ago, and they just said they are shifting focus to not just PPE, but it's also, yes, how are they continued to be worn on site after you've introduced them and got them fit for purpose. So it is something that in Queensland, I'm not sure if you've seen this yourself, Grant, where maybe the PCBU and the individual worker may get a fine if they're not compliant with how they should be wearing it. Bit harsh, but that's the reality of what's happening up there, to my understanding.
Yeah, I'm not on tier 1, only tier 2, and I haven't seen that yet.
But fingers crossed it doesn't trickle down.
But it's not only a beard, it's just a few days growth. Doesn't work either.
It literally is facial hair in general. So they would say, and that's where when we quantitatively measure that leak, it's hard because every gentleman's facial hair grows at different rates, and some get a 5 o'clock shadow, some get, once a week shave. So versus making it unique to every individual, it's just like you can't police that. So you just go with a blanket. Everyone must be clean shaven.
I think there's going to be a few rolling eyes there, because that one's going to be hard to introduce to the team, to say, right, everyone's looking nice and clean every day. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because there is no perfect solution to that. Obviously, everyone's not going to shave every day. That is just the way it is. But what we can focus on in this webinar is a solution and how that can roll out. So let's look at that now. I've seen a couple of other questions come through. I will get to them, guys. So a question I always get is, well, Luke, if we have to buy reusable masks for all of our staff, and I've got 30 staff or even 10, that's quite a bit of money. And then when somebody leaves, they take the mask with them, and I'm forever updating new company uniforms and masks and everything else that we're giving out. And I imagine that's on everyone's mind. It's like, what does this cost? What's going to happen? So I looked at this for a little while and thought the only solution was getting everyone fit tested and giving them a disposable mask, and then also having some P2 disposable masks that are available as well. Beck said that you can actually have all of your team fit tested and then have a certificate to say when everyone was tested and what size mask they have. And then you as a company could then supply maybe 3 of every size and have them available in your company workshop as masks for the entire team. Then when the team need them, they will need to grab them. Now, that causes some other issues that maybe they don't have them when they need them. But what I'm trying to do is just give some plausible ideas to say, well, you don't just have to blanket buy everyone a mask. You could look at it in a way that you're just buying a handful of masks, but you would need to do a couple of things to make sure that works. So if you got Beck in, grab her on the phone. We'll share her details after this in the newsletter. She's going to consult with you and work out what have you got in place, give you some feedback on whether it's working, and then she would come out and do the fit testing for you. So she's got branches around Australia, so I'm sure we're going to be able to work out some way for you to get there. Then we're talking about Beck doing a fit test. She's going to provide a certificate that says, okay, everyone's been tested on this day, the size, and the date. Beck, you're also saying that it might be a good idea, just to have reusable masks for everyone as well, have them as part of the kit, but also have the...
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So test everyone, give a handful of masks to the entire team, but have them maybe in the workshop or something. Keep the disposable masks and packets of those with all the workers at all time, so they've got a backup.
That's it. And then reusables, I prefer those because long term, if I was a business owner, that is going to dramatically reduce the cost, because disposables add up and workers will plow through them. They, don't cost anything, but there is a cost to that. And again, another way to just alleviate it all, which I'm big on trying to help organisations navigate this, is you can literally buy those PAPRs. You don't need to fit test. You don't need to mandate any clean shave, and it's make those available. You may fork out a little bit more, but you wouldn't need to have my services come in. You don't need to log specific respirators for each individual worker. They can actually have access to those powered air units, and as long as you've got enough to have a log in, log out, and just a cleaning process in between. But either way, we can do the fit testing on reusables because it's cheaper. You can get away with a kit for like $77. That's the mask, the filters, and the container. But there's multiple ways to skin a cat, so it's just what works for each organisation.
Okay. Beck, you just used an acronym there, which I didn't understand.
Sorry.
What's PAPR or something? What was it?
So that's a powered air purifying respirator. They do come in tight versions which still require a fit test, but the most popular is a loose fitting one. And like I said, it's just a certified hard hat with a face shield, a bit of a shroud around the neck, so it keeps somewhat of the positive pressure airflow in the face piece for that worker. And that pumps air through at a rate of about 170 litres per minute. So that worker's continually being given fresh, clean air that's purified through the filters, and that's what keeps them safe in those environments. They do tasks that generate the dust.
Yeah. Okay. So something like you're talking there is really like when you're right in the middle of the dust and long periods of time where you're actually going to have a powered air machine. Yeah. Okay. Ask questions if you've got them. I hope we're getting through this and explaining it reasonably well. But when I was talking to Beck before, disposables can add up. We know that buying those, they just get thrown out really quickly. So a combination of having the disposables available to the team, but also the reusable masks for everyone. But I just made a little picture down here. So again, just talking about how I would do this, I feel like I would, if I had 30 guys, I would probably do, get 10 or so masks that were in the variety of the sizes that I needed. Get a kit from Bunnings, something like this. We're not supplying these yet. It is a vision in my head, but we're not supplying them. So Bet can essentially come in, do the testing on your team, give a mask or a handful of masks, and then you would have certificates and also the size that they are. So we've talked about this extensively and thought that's a reasonable process that a company can take without spending the money on all the masks and having those masks leave when your staff leave as well. The only downside to this is that the masks need to be cleaned after they're used. So Beck and I are making a video at the moment which will go on a QR code which we can put on your certificate. So if you put that next to your AirGuard box, the guys will also have access how to clean the masks as well. That would be the only downside to sharing the masks, but this will be a decision that every company needs to figure out whether they're going to buy masks for everyone and deal with the masks walking out and a little bit of collateral damage, or do you create a central unit in your factory and let everyone know that if you've got this sort of tasks coming up, that you'll need to come in and grab your mask and clean it when you're done. Can I just ask a couple of people, maybe Grant, did you know that you could just get masks for a few guys, a handful of masks, and then have them cleaned by everyone?
Yeah, I did. I know that once they're sized and they fit per size, that they can be swapped around from person to person.
Is anyone else in the room buying masks for the entire team yet, or we're not at that point? What system are you using, Grant? Are you buying a mask for every person or doing just a handful of masks that they reuse?
We tested to disposable P2s and use them continually.
Okay. Yeah, up to you if you guys want to reach out to Beck after this and discuss how to go through that. But essentially what we're trying to get you to is a point that you've had consultation with someone like Beck. She's one of the best in Australia and just an amazing human. She's definitely here to make sure your staff are are taken care of, and also the business is taken care of. Have that chat with Beck. I will just say that there's a few other things that I would suggest everyone doing. So Beck has now made toolbox talks from Fit Test. I'm going to show you quickly. Beck's been jumping on camera, so sharing masks, how to fit them correctly, tasks that require masks, cleaning them, and why do we need a dust mask? Because a lot of people probably don't even realize or don't, just need to have that chat on why we need these. So those types of videos, Beck and I are going to create a few. We've done 5 already, so we'll be releasing those in the next few weeks to everyone's accounts. They'll come into your production area and absolutely move them through. And I think we should be getting them into those weekly toolbox talks. So we've got some toolbox talks coming through, but also in your swims. If you're using your own swims, this stuff definitely needs to be in there. Whatever the process is, whether you're getting in a fit tester, whether that's every 12 months or 6 months, that stuff needs to be written in. If you're using our Multiply Me swims, we've already written in that you'll be doing fit testing every 12 months. So it's already in your swims. From there, I will just go back to these questions that I've seen from a couple of people here. So let me just grab those.
There's also a couple of other requirements that we should talk about as well, Luke.
I'll go for it while I get myself through these questions.
Yep, before you do that. So it is also important that we look at, there's also some health monitoring requirements for workers that have ongoing risks for exposure. So that's another requirement that we've got. There's also, we touched on obviously the training. So the training needs to be approved or accredited training. I know a lot of the tier 1 builders in some states are asking for accredited training, but it can be approved in-house training as well, which obviously Luke's all over the top of as well. And we mustn't ever forget our responsibility to consult with our workers on all this. So consultation is obviously another really, really key. And I know Beck touched on it as well, but obviously during your risk assessment, before and during training, so when training happens, and when we are reviewing and updating our plans. So some businesses need a Silica control plan. In construction, your swims are suitable to cover that. So there is a couple of other requirements there that need to be looked at as well. So I just think it's important that we mention that today.
Definitely. There's 2 things there. I can speak back to that before I get to the questions. Beck, you have a Silica awareness program that you're happy to share out. I think it's...
To share the link. It's Beck approved, like Kathy said, so not accredited, but it's approved.
And there is a cost to that. Is there a cost per person?
Yeah, we just charge $60 per person plus GST, and that's online, but we can do face-to-face training as well. We try to minimise that cost because businesses seem to be kind of stuck at the moment with navigating this whole process.
So when you have your chat with Beck, that's a direct chat with Rebecca. We're not in the middle of that. So you're dealing with her as a direct consultant. But Beck, you can advise. I mean, we're going to share the link for your $60 course. So that's a Silica awareness course. So again, a building company with 10 staff, should they just be getting their staff to do the Silica awareness course?
As part of high risk, that is training around how to recognise silica containing materials and how to what are the right way to process it and work with it, and how do they manage that.
Okay, so how long does that course go for that you've got?
If someone's quite quick and they are English speaking, they could probably get through it within an hour or a little bit over, but someone that may have language as a second language may take a little bit longer. Okay.
So cool. So maybe an hour and a half, the guys can go through that. What do they get out of the back of that? Is there some...
They'll get the certificate, and we also send you through a certificate that comes from Safe Work Australia too, that you actually can tick off to show that we have provided the 14 components, because they want to know, well, who was providing it and how good was it? So you can actually mark it off if you felt that you needed to cross-check what we're providing, and then keep that on a register. So if they saw you did that, they may not even look at much more beyond that, because they can see that you've done that due diligence to make sure the training provided from anybody that you source that from is covering the key components.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. So that's available. And obviously you do in-house consulting as well, which when people give you a buzz, you can share which way is the best to go. So what I'm hearing is put you guys on the Silica register. This course that you've got could be a good idea, the $60 course, sharing your toolbox talks through Multiply Me, and then making sure the fit testing is done, either buying masks for everyone, using disposable, or using a smaller amount of reusable and getting people to clean them. All right, that's awesome. I hope that's clarified a few things. Let me get through these questions, guys. So Meg, you had a question. I have a question for the other trades on site.
Yes, sorry, I wrote that a little bit quickly. Hi, Luke.
No, that's all right. Yeah,
everybody.
Awesome. If you want to ask that question, then we can discuss it. That'd be great.
I think it's been some great, clear guidance this morning from Rebecca and Kathy, so thank you for sharing it all. I'm interested in, though, Kathy, you mentioned in the beginning an example of someone who was an office staff member who's since been affected by it. Mm-hmm. For trades that aren't directly dealing with concrete and they're not cutting, would it be difficult to not classify them as high risk because of the nature of a construction site and how residential and commercials, there isn't really a lot of distinction between work areas and where we work and how we interact?
Absolutely, Meg, and that comes down to risk assessment as well. If there isn't delineation from those areas, those workers, whether they're actually doing that task or not, they could be cleaning up in the area as well, because cleaning up is another exposure risk. They could be cleaning up, which could, once you send those particles into the air. So yeah, absolutely, that's all part of the risk assessment process, and each of the PCBUs have responsibility there. If no matter how the exposure is, whether they're doing the task straight up or whether they're exposed to it by being in the area, there is a responsibility there, absolutely, to determine that risk and put the controls into place.
Thank you, Kathy.
No worries. Meg. So yeah, if your workers are working in areas where that, even if they're not doing that, and I know particularly with your business with the scaffold, that there is still some exposure there. Again, it comes down to the time that they're exposed and the proximity of it to it as well, but there certainly is some exposure there for sure.
Yes, we talk about during dismantles, the residue left on the scaffold itself.
Yeah.
Wow. So even scaffold companies who are only putting up steel, when you're pulling the scaffold down, it's got dust all over it. It really plays back into what we've said the whole time, is that it's easier just to go register, get masked, and really just to take this by the horns, as opposed to saying it doesn't concern us. And that was the whole point of this webinar, was to say that treat it really seriously, put the controls in place, speak with Beck, use the tools we have on Multiply Me, and just make a very proactive effort in this space. Hopefully that's made sense today. Now, Gabrielle, you said that's annual fit testing, isn't it? Or if a person grows or removes a beard, loses weight, gains weight, where are we going there?
Hello. Hi, Luke. Kathy.
Hello.
Beck.
How are you?
Hi. I'm good, thanks.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you. Beck answered that yes, it is annual fit testing. How do we track when somebody grows, removes a beard, or loses or gains weight? You said something about a device that they can test themselves. Is that right?
There's a negative positive pressure check that workers should do prior to entering the hazardous environment, but that shouldn't be confused with the fit test. So that once they're fit for purpose into that mask, if they come back to you because they have had some work done or they have gained or lost significant weight and they feel like their mask isn't fit for purpose anymore, if they do conduct that check and it's showing that growth, it's usually like an air pass, it's like you obviously hear it, and if they can't alleviate that through adjustments and putting it back on and checking again, then maybe they might be due a different size respirator.
Okay. So it's not actually an apparatus, it's
it's just them checking the actual, self-testing. Very hard with the P2, especially with the valve. You kind of can't do a fit check on that. But reusable ones you can. You either block the inhale of air or you block the exhale, and it'll give you a quick 10-second check on whether or not the respirator is providing the seal that the worker needs for it to be effective in that environment.
And you obviously show them that at the annual fit test.
Yeah, that's what we cover when we do a fit test with them as well, how to conduct that fit check for themselves.
And also what's key to that is the training, Beck. I think you'd agree. Like, I think in the training, we cover the size of the particle that we're talking about. Yeah. If the training hits the mark with the workers and they understand that we're talking about particles that are smaller than a fifth the size of a human hair, it's getting that understanding from workers that what can affect that. And obviously all the things that you said in your question, that's what affects it. So it's having that awareness that someone goes, well, I've just lost 30 kilos and my face is half the size that it used to be. I may need to get tested again. So yeah, it's raising that awareness around workers and businesses around that.
I think that's a really good point there, Gabrielle. That's a simple test that the staff can do. So once Beck comes out, test them to it or fit for purpose for the mask, part of educating them on how to wear the mask is how to check it every day. So maybe that's something that goes into the swims to say staff are responsible for doing their positive negative pressure chest, but then reporting if they're feeling that something has changed.
I think I'll definitely add it into the standard operating procedure or safe work procedure.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Good on you. Thank you, guys.
Just one more quick question there from Ken Longshaw. Hey, Ken, how are you? You said, does the PCBU, do they need to put subcontractors on the register? And I see you've already responded to that, Kathy, and said, no, that is not right. It's only your direct employees. Is that correct?
Yeah, each PCBU has the responsibility of looking after their own workers.
I have a sole trader as a lady carpenter, and she does 3 days a week for me and a couple other jobs. Does she have to do it for herself, or do I have to do it?
Well, you don't have to. You could do it for her. You could. Or as a sole trader, she is still responsible for her health and safety when the requirements under that, but you could do it for her.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Not a problem.
Is there any other questions? Cool, we've got one more come through from Chris. Chris, feel free to jump on.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the exposure limit. I'm hearing through the grapevine that exposure limit will be reduced down to the 0.025, and especially working 12-hour shifts, that time-weighted average is going to come down to, I don't know what it is, 1.7 milligrams per cubic metre. So I guess the question is, even though we've got the PAPRs and our clean-shaven policy, is that enough to keep us compliant with what's required, even though these exposure limits are reduced?
Chris, can I just jump in? Do you want to just explain the work you're doing in the company?
Sorry, I'm in WA in the mining industry.
Yep. Kathy or Beck, did you want to respond to that? Because that's over my head, that one.
Yeah, I can just quickly answer on that's where it would be like, once you have got the fit testing in place and you've done all that, it's like just making sure that you're managing the workers that are actually going to be doing either tasks or in areas to make sure that they do wear their respirators and things like that. I think a lot of people put the process and compliance in place but don't follow through with the actual, are they doing it? But I know when I spoke to Safe Work, they did say that the rumours are to be dropped as well, Chris, which is a bit frightening, because he made the comment that everyone will just be in a mask, which I was like, well, how are they supposed to do that all the time? And that's where Kathy keeps referring to the risk assessment, who's at risk and what controls are in place to make sure that they're being protected in those environments.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the reduction, in the exposure limit is not really going to change how we're managing that. If we're doing all the controls as prescribed at the moment, okay, it might pull a few more businesses into it. But if you're already doing what you need to be doing, I don't think that's going to be a huge change to what you're doing. Does that make sense? If you've already got everything in place.
I guess it comes down to the point, the guys are wearing them, we've got our PPR, we've got our controls in place. I mean, these guys are going to go over the exposure limit by a long shot with this reduction. But I guess
you said they're using PAPRs, Chris, is that right? The power air units?
For the guys that specifically do not want to shave, then we've got an agreement with them. We've bought them PAPRs.
And that's a higher protection factor for the respirators. So people that are concerned, just to give clarity, if you're using a P2 and you're like, oh my gosh, the exposure is getting reduced, you can go with just respirators that might turn into full face, or the PAPR that provide a higher level of protection.
Yeah.
So if you move to those devices now, you've gone from like a 10 times protection to those PAPRs are 50 times the protection. So you're
not only silica we're worried about, it's manganese and all sorts of nasty stuff that's coming through. It's all getting reduced. So
I think they're getting it reduced as well, just like you said. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for your time, guys.
No worries. Thank you, Chris. If you want to reach out to Beck, she's always happy to have a chat as well after this. They're and Kathy as well. All right, guys. Well, we've gone 10 minutes over, but I felt like I just let it run because the conversation's quite serious. So all I can do is urge people from here. I hope that we've given some light to that, to a little bit of a grey understanding. So we're doing our best to figure this stuff out and bring you the information and a solution. So I would say your next steps, whether you have a concern, jump on the phone to Beck. We'll put her phone number in an email, which will come out in the next few days with a recording of this. And obviously, if you're on Multiply Me, which most of you are, we'll also be looking at rolling out those videos from Beck out into your toolboxes as well. All right, guys, that wraps us up. Thank you for your undivided attention. No one has left the call, so I really appreciate that. So thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Beck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
No worries.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, everybody.